Our first item this evening was to be a presentation by Mr. Dave Duncan. Unfortunately, Mr. Duncan's office contacted us late this afternoon, and he's unable to come this evening. And what we'd like to do is reschedule this rather than undertake it in a different manner. So we'll move on to item 2.
Well, any people that only came for that item, you can leave. Mr. Clerk.
Item 2 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, July 18th. Recommendations to approve.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, seconded by Councillor Lynch. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
Item 3 is the minutes of the public hearing held Monday, July 25th. Recommendations to approve.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Reamer. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
And item 4 is the minutes of the regular council meeting held Monday, July 25th. Recommendations to approve.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. All in favour? Opposed? Carried.
Item 5 is the minutes of the Land Use and Economic Development Standing Committee meeting of Monday, July 25th. The recommendations to receive those minutes.
Moved by Councillor Sikora, seconded by Councillor Robinson. All in favour? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item of business arising out of that meeting concerns the Burquitlam Neighbourhood Plan Update and proposed actions. The recommendations that Council direct staff to undertake the actions listed here in 1 and 2 and bring forward information for Council's consideration in relation to the Burquitlam Neighbourhood Plan and immediately adjacent lands. And 3, to hold the processing of existing pre-applications and any new applications that are inconsistent with the adopted land use plan designations in abeyance until Council endorsement of the evaluation framework noted above.
I'm going to ask Councillor Reid, who's the chair of the Land Use Committee, if she has any opening comments.
I just wanted to make a comment that through the summer there has been lots of calls to my home and my cell over this recommendation that hopefully we are about to endorse. Some people were very understanding, some were develop at all costs, and they were politely at times by me told that we don't develop at all costs, that we're going to get one time to look at Burquitlam, which will be our SkyTrain station, and that we are going to do it right. And if it takes a year or 2 years, we're going to do it slowly and we're going to do it right. And that is the reason for this recommendation. And virtually everybody got the same message, and I've only had 2 callbacks. Could they meet? I believe they're meeting with staff as well. And other than that, pretty well the development industry is just very quiet and hopefully understanding.
Would you like to move the recommendation?
I will move the recommendation.
Seconded by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Asmussen.
Thank you very much. I'm going to vote in favour of this. The one point I do have is under 2A, develop additional policies to address rental replacement and land use transitions. I guess my concern is at the city level here, we have very limited funds to deal with rental apartment replacement and that's a federal and provincial government responsibility and funding responsibility, and I think I want that to be highlighted as we go through the idea of rental replacement policies here, that we're not downloaded or we take on the responsibility of those issues for the replacement of rental properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I'm also going to support these recommendations, and I appreciate Councillor Reid bringing forward sort of the conversations that she's had over the summer, because I do think we only have one shot at getting this right. I want to make sure that we pay attention to what amenities we need to bring to this community. It's sort of a bit barren right now. I want to make sure that we do take a look at opportunities for affordable housing. I agree with Councillor Asmussen about the issues around downloading, but I do think that at municipal level we do have a role to play, and I want to have some clarity about what that role is and make sure that we maximize that. So the only other concern, and maybe staff can address this, that I have is just about how thinly spread we are, given that we're doing so much work, development work at Burke and Maillardville and Burquitlam, and if you have sort of any recommendations on how we can manage all this tension of development. I think it's good, but I also want to make sure that we get it right. Words of wisdom, please.
We're looking for words of wisdom, or did you want Mr. McIntyre to speak?
Oh.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Jim, please, forgive me.
No, that's fine. Your Worship, it's good to be back as well. Just like a first day at school. all a little rambunctious, but a couple comments. First, it is very encouraging. Actually, it's a very exciting time and place to work right now. You look around Coquitlam and what's happening. We are very fortunate if you see this change as positive, which many of us do, and to see the development happening around the community. And it's an opportunity to grow the community, and consistent with the vision of council and the community plan. In terms of being spread too thin, I don't think that's a case. Well, for example, looking at recommendation 3, it's saying hold those applications that aren't consistent with the plans. And so if an application is consistent with plans, and we've seen a number of those come through committee and council, by all means, we will process those, and they will get the attention they deserve. It's the new ones that are inconsistent, because I think we saw a wave of those come through there late spring, early summer. They were sort of on the edges, sort of nibbling away at the edges with some different ideas, and some may have merit, some may want to look at it a little more closely. So what we're suggesting is hold back on those. Let's develop some assessment criteria to look at those, and that would give council a basis and staff a basis to deal with those in the future. We will get to that. This is in advance of doing a full neighborhood plan review, and that's why we've said let's develop this criteria as sort of an interim stopgap measure, so we have some basis to look at these things rationally and critically. But because we do have a number of other neighborhood plans underway at all ends of the city, up in the northeast, Pardon Creek, down in Maillardville, and we also want to get restarted on the city center area plan on the expectation that everything's going ahead. So we will be busy across the board. In that area, we will be making a few minor staff changes, and if we need additional resources, we can always bring in outside assistance with that. On the development side, and this is probably something maybe more worthy of discussion at committee, we are trying to again, efficiently allocate our staff resources to deal with where the pressures are, and if we do need additional help in that, we do bring staff in on occasion to help through that. So we've got a full workload, but I think we are coping, and as I said, we're fortunate to have this much opportunity happening right now.
Thank you.
And may I say that sounded very wise. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much, Mayor. You're going to be doing a lot of work on this project, but I don't think you're going to accomplish too much. And I'll be very, very straightforward. The fact is there'll be no developer that will say, I'm going to build a 20-story high-rise, and the bottom 4 floors are going to be rental, or the middle 4 floors or the top 4 floors will be rental. There's no such thing, because there's a strata council done with every development. And the only way you're going to accomplish this, and if you're going to start destroying rental areas in Maillardville or in Burquitlam area, I'll be voting against it. There's no question about it. The fact is that, the only way that we can do is go to the federal government when they used to have tax breaks for the developers. Then they built a lot of rental places. Otherwise, it will be spinning wheels. We ain't going to be going nowhere. And if you're going to ask a developer to build a rental place on something that he'll probably pay a premium price for the land, because everybody's greedy nowadays on their land, is worth millions of dollars, they can't financially come out of it. So let's not kid each other. I mean, I think there's another area that will be spinning wheels not going anywhere. I'm just mentioning this, okay? Thanks.
And Councillor, you have spurred Councillor Reid to push her button. Councillor Reid.
That's not quite true. There has been a coalition in the last 6 months at Metro Vancouver. I sit on that housing committee. And for a year, we've discussed on how best to go back to the feds and do exactly what you're talking about, which is present a united front. So instead of all the different places that provide housing and the different societies and the nonprofits, etc., we have got together in Vancouver and formed a coalition, and the real estate board is involved as well. Lenders are involved as well. They have all gone back with housing providers to the feds and put many things that they can do. And like many years ago, as Councillor Sikora was discussing, the people who developed rental housing were given different forms of tax breaks. That is definitely on the program. But there are other things. One of my favorite things has been, over the last 2 years, has been how to get people out of nonprofit housing and how to get people out of rental housing and into their own housing. And we have a meeting coming up very shortly so that our staff can hear this, because I think it's wonderful. It's about fractional home ownership. And I would love to be the city that can put that, on the ground and come out with something that's new and innovative and provide affordable housing for families. So we are doing lots. And in our city, we can do lots too. And just because there's a strata corporation, that doesn't mean that one person can't own 20 suites, like the owner-developer retained 20. So it doesn't make any difference. There's already people talking to us about that. Thank you.
Well, I'd have to agree. I spent years on the board of directors, or rather on the Minister's Advisory Council on Affordable Housing, and the challenges that existed then still exist, but there are new solutions that are being brought forward. Fractional certainly is one of them, but we can't just keep approaching this the way we approached it 20 years ago. We must approach this issue right up front and with a thought of thinking way outside the box and trying to create the kind of opportunities for affordable housing. There's no question that the federal government has a role to play, because on the pro forma, rental housing still doesn't work. But it can be made to work, and we've had some landowners even in the Burquitlam area that have talked to me about how they might be able to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. So I applaud Councillor Reid and her committee for the work they're doing. Okay, the motion's on the floor. Anybody else? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried unanimously.
Next item arising out of that committee's meeting concerns Maillardville street sign names. The Land Use and Economic Development Committee's recommendation is that Council direct staff to work with the Coquitlam Heritage Society and the Maillardville Residents Association in support of their efforts to recognize in a public manner those persons for whom Maillardville streets have been named.
Moved by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Reamer. I'm going to assume that's both the persons and organizations. There's a couple of streets that were named other than for persons, but historically. I look forward to seeing that. Anybody on this one? All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 6 is the minutes of the Engineering, Utilities and Environment Standing Committee meeting of Monday, July 25th. Recommendation to receive.
Moved by Councillor Lynch, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. I do want to, at this point, also applaud the Committee on Engineering Public Works Department for all of the initiatives related to school traffic safety that have unfolded in the last few weeks in preparation for school. I hope people are maintaining their 30-kilometer zones as they go through school zones as school starts up again. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you. Item 6.2 concerns the draft Scott Creek Integrated Watershed Management Plan. The recommendation from the committee is that Council receive the draft plan and direct staff to make copies of the plan available for public viewing at our libraries, direct staff to hold a public open house to receive input, and direct staff to report back on this public consultation process in order to finalize the plan for adoption by Council.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Lynch. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Next item arising out of that committee's meeting concerns the Lougheed Riverview multi-use pathway feasibility study. The recommendation by the committee is that Council direct staff to enter into further discussions with the province with the intent of seeking agreement in principle for this type of pathway. Direct staff to refer to functional level planning budgets of Riverview option pending provincial support for the route to the financial plan process this fall, and to write a letter to the CPR with a copy to UBCM and FCM expressing Coquitlam's desire for the CPR to expand the use of rail corridors for multi-use pathways in the region.
Moved by Councillor Asmussen, second by Councillor Nicholson. All in favor? Oops, Councillor Robinson, my apologies.
Thank you. I love this. I think it'll be fabulous. I'm wondering if I'd like to actually make an amendment to include the Coquitlam MLAs and perhaps maybe even Port Coquitlam, given that it's part of that corridor as well, because I think it would be great to have some advocates on that side helping to move this through.
I consider that friendly, everybody. No objection? Seeing none. Councillor Nicholson.
Just suggest MPs as well, Councillor Robinson. Thank you.
I consider that friendly as well. Any objection? Seeing none. I want to thank the councillors that participated in the tour, including the bike portion. Okay, the vote is all in favor. All those opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item 7 is fourth and final reading of Highway Dedication Cancellation Bylaw 4220. This is adjacent to city-owned properties in northeast Coquitlam. Recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to Highway Dedication Cancellation Bylaw 4220-2011.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Lynch. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 8 is also fourth and final reading, and this is for Highway Dedication Cancellation Bylaw 4233 for 2150 Como Lake Avenue. The recommendations that council give fourth and final reading to Highway Dedication Cancellation Bylaw 4233, 2011.
Moved by Councillor McDonnell, second by Councillor Reamer. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 9 is an application for a permanent change to a liquor license for a food primary establishment. This is for DR Daniel's Restaurant at 27A6 Barnett Highway. Council has a choice of options. The option A is to approve direct public consultation process be initiated at the cost of the applicant, or B, to opt out of commenting on the application, noting that the LCLB will undertake their own process.
Move option A.
Okay. At least you're not opposed to each other. I'm going to take Councillor Asmundson first, because he was first. Councillor Asmundson moves recommendation A, and it was seconded by Councillor Nicholson. Councillor McDonnell.
Thanks. I'm going to support this recommendation A, but I agree with public consultation. I'm not happy with this application, though, and my reasons for that are that this restaurant is a destination restaurant. If we're going to approve or put any comments onto this recommendation, you have to drive to this restaurant. There's very few residents within walking distance, and when you're asking to extend drinking hours, you have to, I think, have residents around where you can walk home instead of, or rely on public transit, not to have a car-centric destination for extended drinking. So I support the consultation process, and I'm really not happy about extending these hours.
Okay, Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. The one thing I'd like to mention, I believe in fairness as far as liquor licenses are concerned in Coquitlam. What time do the pubs close? I think they serve till 1 o'clock or midnight anyway.
They generally serve past midnight. The food primaries are open till midnight, and pubs are to 1 to 2.
So now in Boone County goes till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning?
I believe it's 2 a.m., but I'm not positive.
Okay, now, Boone County, can you walk to it? No, you drive. Okay? Pubs, how do you go to the pubs? You drive. Unless you come in this area here where there's high rises. Okay? So the fact is what we're doing in here is discriminating against certain liquor licenses. The fact is, I feel that we as a council have a right to regulate them, and we should have all the same hours for all liquor licenses in Coquitlam. I'm not saying that somehow we should exclude Boone County not to serve till 2 o'clock in the morning, but I think we should extend to restaurants and to pubs till 1 o'clock in the morning. I see nothing wrong with that. To have a person spend about $1,400 to get a study going, I think we're putting them to a lot of expenses when our business taxes are the highest in British Columbia by far. And many of these owners are working hours and really struggling to pay their taxes. So now we're controlling them as far as the expenditure is concerned. So I cannot support A. I know the next one is coming forward that is amongst a bunch of high-rises. Everybody walks to it. We've got very little parking in the area. So, probably the same thing. They'll be moving A for the next one. I don't believe in that. I believe that we should be unified and give everybody the same kind of hours of operation, period. I see nothing wrong with that. But we choose and pick who gets a little extension, who doesn't get an extension. And I don't think it's this council to do that. I think we're going to be friendly to our businesses. We give the restaurants the same as we give the pubs, as we give anybody else to serve the liquor. And I don't see why a study should be, because in here it says also we can up to make no comments, and the liquor inspector can make that decision. Now, why not take that one? That seems to be the easiest way out for us on both, with this one and the next one, with number 10. So I'll not be supporting A.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch.
Thank you. Well, I will be supporting this. I think one of the things that we've been criticized for in the past is when we don't go to public consultation. So regardless of whether we think it would be fine for us to do this, and we've done it for other restaurants, we've extended their liquor license hours or recommended that they go to public consultation. So I think that's the appropriate way to go. It would be nice if all our restaurants lived within walking distance, but they don't. So that's fine. That just means it has to be a designated driver. I don't think we can penalize the restaurants that are situated in an area that people can't walk there. We need to give them the same opportunity to serve their clientele, and then it's on the onus of the people who go to the restaurant to have a designated driver, go as couples, or whatever. So I think moving forward with the public consultation is the best way for us to go, because we need to hear what the residents in that area think.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. The one thing that we're doing is the pub licenses. They have much more stringent rules that they have to operate under. And every time we take a food primary license and extend it from just dinner and on into midnight, 1:30 a.m., what we're doing is we're just running a whole pile of pubs, folks. That's what we're doing here. We're just opening everything up so it's booze everywhere you want and every liquor license and everything going. I think these are the rules, so I guess we have to have public consultation, because I think that's about all that we're allowed to do. But Councillor Sikora is right. If it's going to be a level playing field out there for businesses, then pubs and restaurants should have to have the same rules that they operate by. So pubs shouldn't have to have more stringent regulations than restaurants would if they're all open till 1:30 in the morning. And I think maybe the province, now that the Lower Mainland is going that way, a pub on every corner, which is what a restaurant is with a license like this, then I think maybe they need to take a look at the licensing overall of everything. So I'll be supporting the consultation, because that's the only remedy I have at this moment. Thank you.
Well, I'll be supporting the consultation as well. And I have to disagree with Councillor Sikora. I think consultation is the only tool we have in order to gauge public opinion of the neighborhood. There are locational issues with pubs. We don't put them anywhere. We're quite stringent about where they've been placed. Restaurants, on the other hand, are in every corner of our community, and with much less concern for their location. There are restaurants right across from elementary schools, for example. So I think we've already been quite more relaxed with the location of restaurants. We do at the same time, though, I think, owe it to the neighborhoods that restaurants are in, that as the rules evolve, that a restaurant that is really just a pub at midnight serving alcohol ought to be perhaps something that we can listen to the neighborhood about. Listening to the neighborhood doesn't cost us anything. It does cost the restaurateur something, though, and I recognize those costs, but at the same time, that's the rules that have been put in place by the province. Pubs are different from restaurants, and I think the public expects that they will be different. I think the public expects and has the right to expect that we will be more stringent with pubs and with cabarets than we are with restaurants. Related to hours, perhaps, I don't agree that the hours necessarily have to be the same, but I do think that on a case-by-case analysis, based on what the neighborhood thinks, we can be responsive to the neighborhood and responsive to the business community at the same time. So I'm going to listen very carefully to the public consultation on this one. Councillor Reamer.
Thank you. I'm going to support option A. I think it's really important that this council be able to comment on this application, and therefore I'm going to support the public consultation process.
as I will be on the following application as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I too will be supporting option A, and I just want to be clear that we will then have opportunity to debate the merits of.
Yeah.
So we've sort of started it a little bit ahead of time, but I just want to make sure that there will be opportunity at a later point for us to provide comment about why we should or shouldn't support this application. That's the process. Thank you.
Point well taken. Thank you very much. Seeing no other speakers, motion is option A. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 10, as foreshadowed, is also an application for a permanent change to a liquor license to a food primary establishment. This is for the Urban Gate Restaurant, which is located at 1158B, the High Street. As before, we have option A, which is the public consultation process at the applicant's cost, or option B, the council opt out of commenting at this time and that the manager of the LCLB proceed with their own process.
Moved by Councillor Robinson, seconded by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Sikora.
Yeah, thank you very much. Again, Mayor, you said you disagreed with me, and yet you say you've had more stringent control on pubs and cabarets. Yet your cabaret right here in Boone County serves liquor till 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, I don't know what you're saying, because you seem to be talking on both sides of your mouth at the same time. You know, I mean, let's get things straight first in our mind, is what do we really mean, Mayor? That's what I'm getting at. And, you know, and matter of fact, you sent an email to this gentleman on number 10 that these kind of applications normally get turned down, and he might be wasting his time for applying for it, and I can present that email if I have to, that you sent to this gentleman of this on High Street. So, you know, I'm getting a little boiling mad about these kind of things, of actions by certain council members and the mayor especially, what's happening in here. The fact is, this one here is all high-rises around it. It's a walk business. There's very few parking in there. Outside in Coquitlam Center, walk a block and a half or 2 blocks down there. It's 2 or 3 parking spaces on the opposite side of the street, and that's it. And there's what, 15, 20 high-rises, and his own people in the high-rises are saying, we'd like to come out here at midnight and have a beer. And what's wrong with that? It's an area that they walk to. They don't drive. So when we're talking about that you're going to drive to this place, there's no driving in here. Now you're again moving option A. Now, I don't know what's going through people's minds. At least go take a look for yourself. It's a bunch of high-rises around there. There's nothing else. But again, going to be option, we go put the businessman through spending more money in this community. We're driving businesses out of this community, and we're going to spend more money. For instance, I mentioned this afternoon, I'll mention it again. In 2005, we had 472 business licenses in this community. We now fell to 420. What does that mean? We chased 50-odd businesses out of this community with our taxation and a few other things. Just very, very unfair the way businessmen are being treated. And I think that that's terrible. But anyways, I'll be voting against A.
Thank you. The business license numbers are wrong, but I'll leave those alone because that wasn't part of it. I disagree with you again, Councillor Sikora. No big deal. I didn't always, but I do on this one, because I think the people around that, you mentioned, there's lots of high-rises around there, and there's lots of residents around this unit. I want to hear their opinion. I'd like us to allow them to comment on this application, because they may have concerns. We've heard from some of the people in that neighborhood about noise levels from various activities, primarily construction, and I would like to know whether they favor this or are opposed to it, and I think that it's appropriate that we ask them. That's option A. Option B says we don't want their opinions. We're going to step aside that, opt out of commenting and opt out of asking the local residents, and I believe we ought to ask the local residents about both of these applications. Related specifically to the email, that restaurateur did actually email me and ask me what I thought about it, because we'd had discussions about a variety of topics, and I told him, as I would tell any restaurateur, we get those applications. They don't normally get approved. We've approved one. Generally speaking, and I was very honest with them, that generally speaking, council takes the position that the public should be listened to. If the public has concerns, we ought to perhaps listen to those concerns, specifically about restaurants in residential areas. But I didn't indicate to him that they didn't have any chance at all. I said it was up to council, and council may well choose to have a public consultation, as I will support public consultation. Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I would like staff to tell me what the difference is between the last application and this one. The last one was 9 to 1:30 they're apparently going to be able to have, and this one's 9 till 2.
Essentially, that is the applicant's choice. With the City of Coquitlam, food primary requests to Liquor Licensing Board that close at midnight do not come before council. You can imagine the number of restaurants that have opened up and how few applications come here. It is the applicant that is making that request for that time extension. It's not at staff direction.
We can hold them to 1:30 for one and 2 for the other. Is that it?
One of the options of choosing option A is that council is allowed to receive the public input and then provide its own input back and make some of that.
But you've given us 2 different times on the same.
No, it's the applicant who has chosen those times.
Understand. Okay. So if we approve both, one restaurant can stay open till 1:30 and one could stay open till 2.
That is correct, because that's the time that they have applied
Back
for.
to this one. So now we have like mini pubs at 2 o'clock in the morning open all over. Let's talk about where this one is. It's right in the middle of our downtown core. We can't berm sound up. Not so good when you have 3 or 4 high-rises all along the same street. It's going to be like an echo chamber. And if someone comes and plops a restaurant across the street and they come in and apply for 2 a.m., we can't say no because the guy across the street's got one. So I think this is a be careful what we wish for. And I think to ask the people that have moved into all these high-rises, maybe they looked around the street and saw restaurants and not pubs, and restaurants and not cabarets. Maybe they don't want to live in a place where there's going to be sound 7 nights a week up till 2 a.m. So in this case, because we can't berm sound up and we're opening up a whole new can of worms, I think that consultation is appropriate, and that's what I'll be supporting.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, it's difficult to come up with anything new to say. I think Councillor Robinson's point that we're going to get to discuss this, the pros, cons, and so on. If we don't send it to public consultation, we can't say anything. If we do send it to public consultation, we can make any comment that we like after that, whether it comes back to us from the public or not. And I think a point that we need to bear in mind is I don't see any reason why when we make our response after the public consultation, we can't suggest an appropriate closing time. This council would go along with this, but at 12:30, 12:45, 12:42, pick your time. But that's for another day. But we won't have that other day if we don't support public consultation. Thank you.
Yeah. Those are the 2 options. We don't get the comment, or we listen to the public and then we get the comment. So, Councillor Asmussen.
Well, it's been said, and I'll go around again, that we'll find out from the residents in that area through a public consultation process whether they want later opening hours or not. And that's the only way we're going to find out is through a public consultation process. But I take issue, I think this council has done a good job of trying to engage and improve the business climate in this city by different things from BizPel down. We've been reducing the business tax rate. The business tax rate went up between 83 and 97 by over 1 point, and it's gone down by 1 point from 97 to 2011 by our 0.75% every year shifting over the tax rate. We've been trying to be proactive and deal with these issues on a very responsible method. And I think council as a whole has taken seriously the issue of making us more competitive. But it's not a process that happens overnight. And we've been consistently goes back to our issue of outdated rules and streamlining that and working on all that type of stuff. So we're making a concerted effort on those fronts. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Lynch.
Thank you. So we've approved, or we've recommended that licenses be approved till 1:30 in the past. I'm not sure if there's any restaurants in my recollection in the city that actually do serve liquor till 2, or cabarets that do. I'm wondering if If we sent it out to public consultation and what we heard from the public was they're okay with a license till 1:30, not 2, we could then make the recommendation to the Liquor Control Licensing Board to approve a license, but only to a certain time frame. Can we modify what the applicant is requesting in our recommendation?
I believe so. We've not done it before, but the idea is that we receive a certain input. They're seeking council feedback. Because option B is the Liquor Licensing Board forces them to do a consultation themselves, right? And usually it's much more expensive than what we would charge. So the advantage to A is we receive the feedback, council can give whatever direction it wishes, and it's up to the LCLB to make its determination.
Okay, and do we know if there's any restaurants that have a liquor license until 2?
The one that we have approved within the last 3 years is the Keg has a food primary license that goes past midnight. It is the only one that I am aware of.
It goes to 1:30, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not.
Could we maybe get an answer to that at a future council meeting? Thanks.
Okay, seeing no other speakers, the motion is to hear from the residents of the neighborhood. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Sikora is opposed to that. Motion carries. Mr. Clerk.
Item 11 is changes to the Coquitlam disaster response routes, and the recommendation is that council receive this report for information.
Moved by Councillor Reamer, second by Councillor Asmundson. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 12 is a report that was deferred from an earlier meeting of council pertaining to the Coquitlam Fraser Greenway. It's a status report. The recommendation from the Engineering Utilities Environment Standing Committee at that time was that council direct staff to continue planning the hybrid route concept as the preferred alignment for the Greenway to connect the Newport Man Bridge with Central Valley Greenway in New Westminster.
Second.
Moved by Councillor Asmundson, second by Councillor Reamer. Councillor Robertson.
Thank you. I really appreciated the tour, so I want to thank staff for organizing that and giving us a better view. My understanding, though, from the tour was the temporary road that was built to provide access to build part of the new highway, that temporary road is actually is supposed to be, and maybe it's already happened, where the CP rail is going, because they're moving the rail line over. Did I understand that right? Because I didn't see it in the report. It wasn't as clear to me in the report. And I want to make sure that we're clear that really, there's zero viability for using that temporary road because the rail line is going there.
The information we received from TI Corp, who is overseeing the Port Mann Highway 1 project, is correct, that the rail line is being relocated over the area of the current temporary construction access road in the area near Taft.
Okay. So the other question I have is, have you been in contact with VACC around this report? Do they know that this report was coming to council?
The VACC, there's a draft letter that was attached to the original council report, and so they are aware of that because it went through committee and was public. And so they are aware of that, and they're aware that we did a post-council tour. The information that's in this post-council tour update memo is public for consumption at this time, but has not been sent directly to the VACC.
Well, I'm just in the spirit of keeping the dialogue open with them. I just think it's good practice to sort of give them a heads up that this is the direction that council's gone, this is the report. I just think it's helpful so that they recognize that we've heard their concerns, we've acted on it, we've explored it, and let's just close the loop with them. I just think
there has been verbal discussion with them.
Then that's fine.
Okay.
As long, I just want to make sure that we sort of keep them engaged. So I have one other question. Actually, the mayor actually showed me this little that park that had a little bit of a. And is that going to be part of the plan in some way? That access road to that park that we saw?
Yeah, the park that you're referring to is along the Como Creek area south of United Boulevard, which we did cycle down. You and the mayor cycled to the water along that. I've forgotten the name of the park.
Don Roberts Park.
Don Roberts Park. So yes, that's because that is directly across from the Fraser Mills land, and so access to that park and having a cycling route that's well signed and clearly illustrated in that area, we would certainly enhance that and work with parks to coordinate all of those activities.
Great, thank you.
And it is a little-known park, wonderful views of the Fraser River. It's a cute little park at the end of, right at the south end of Como Creek, and I'd encourage people that are trying this out. I want to acknowledge council members who went on this tour. The last time I mentioned the tour, I was actually realized I had gone on it alone. I know Councillor Robinson did the same thing, did Riverview Hospital by bike. This portion of it is a real challenge because we're going to have a bunch of bikers that are bicyclists that are coming from around the lower mainland and trying to get through Coquitlam to Burnaby to Vancouver to New Westminster. And this, if we get this right, will allow them a safe access through Coquitlam. It'll allow a lot of people to commute, but it'll allow a lot of people a really nice route through Coquitlam, through some scenic portions of Coquitlam as well. And I really want us to get this one right. And I know council members that went on the tour and those of us who did it by bike got a unique perspective of the challenges we've got ahead of us. And those challenges could be really easily solved with some cooperation from a railway. And I think, and the same with the last item, we really have to push, I think, and perhaps even meet with them and meet with them over UBCM or whatever, to try to get some cooperation from the railway that holds the linear route through our community that would provide the easiest and least expensive bike route for commuters and for folks just that want to bike on a Saturday afternoon. Councillor Asmussen.
Thank you very much. Just through to staff, I would also like when you meet with VACC is to talk to them about prioritizing. You know, we always have a lot more ideas and wants and what we have dollars for. So what I'd like to see is I've always believed that the Lougheed corridor part, that was the first there, is probably the highest priority, but I'd like to see you sit down with them and go through what they see as their highest priorities down through. This one here, the Greenway part, while the railway is part of it, there is another, I think, 14 private landowners. It's got a lot of difficulties, and we have to decide if it's worth our dollars and time investing on this, or does the VACC see us with other priorities, like what is the 1, 2, 3, 4 top priorities that they see as we get dollars and move through and can plan these in. So that's through to staff, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments on the Greenway? Seeing none. All in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Item 13 are 2 Metro Vancouver board and briefs. This is from July 15th and July 29th. Our Metro Vancouver board representatives are available to respond to questions, and the recommendation is to receive these briefs for information.
Moved by Councillor Reamer. Seconded by Councillor Reid. Councillor Lynch.
I see that on July 29th that the Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw was adopted, so I'm wondering now the next steps, the regional context statement, when are we starting to deal with that?
I'm going to look to Mr. McIntyre for the answer on that one.
Yes, Your Worship. With the finalization and adoption of the RGS, it starts the clock ticking. So under the regional growth strategy, the member municipalities have 2 years to update their regional context statements, and so we are factoring that into our 2012 work program for community planning staff. There were a few things that needed to be done in advance. So you might recall, as part of the implementation agreement that we reached with Metro, there was some follow-up work that would help with that regional context statement piece, and so they'll be getting on with that. Our community planning manager actually was at a meeting this afternoon with Metro staff. That's why he wasn't at council. And he sent me a brief email, but he'll be updating me this week, and I'll be talking with the city manager as to the various pieces that need to fall into place.
So we as a council will be starting to deal with it, or it'll stay at the staff level for now? When will it come to council?
Again, I think we would outline that as part of our 2012 work program, and once a little bit better fix on that, we bring some information forward to committee and council at that time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Near the bottom of page 2 of the board and brief, I just scrolled myself away from it. The Metro Vancouver 2011 Sustainability Congress. I noticed hosted over 350 participants. And looks like it was a real big event. at the Fairmont, Vancouver. And it would appear that they worked really hard and identified that food, climate change, energy, dematerialization, and security are important to the people of the region. Identified a role for Metro Vancouver. It's not much of a surprise to me. Metro Vancouver should have an important role as a convener of key regional contributors. I'd like our Metro representatives to, after the next Metro meeting, to be able to come back and tell us how much it cost and whether there was any real accomplishments for the money that was spent, and whether we consider, whether our Metro Vancouver reps consider that this was something significant to the role of Metro Vancouver, the appropriate role of Metro Vancouver. I also noticed that the board approved a recommendation to forward the report to all kinds of people, but not city councillors. And I wouldn't mind seeing a copy. Black and white, both sides. Thank you. Or electronic, even less expensive.
We will try and get you an electronic copy of that. And I'll tell you, as a member of the board at Metro Vancouver, I would love to know the costs, although quite often it is very difficult to find out the costs of some of these initiatives. And I noticed that of that list that you read out, the only thing that Metro Vancouver currently doesn't have a committee on is dematerialization, and I expect that by mid-October. I think Councillor Secor also wanted to answer part of the question, perhaps, as the other council board rep.
You know what's happening at the GVD, at the Metro Board, and the fact is that nobody seems to want to pay attention to what's really happening at the Metro Board. Metro Board is running wild on many items. Helter-skelter, they're spending money like it's growing on trees, and you can get it by buckets out of the well and a few other things. It just Metro Vancouver, I've been there just a few months, but I sat there many years ago for 16 years. And we had some kind of leash on the Metro Vancouver and a little control. It's out of control. It's totally, in my last few months, I'll be glad when my year is out, because I can't stand what I'm hearing half the time at that Metro Board, the way they're spending money on things that are frivolous, that we don't need, and the fact is it's out of control totally. Totally out of control on everything. On waste management, they're out of control. On their water, they're out of control. On many, many other things that they're out of, on housing especially. On housing, now they have this fancy thing that Council Reid just mentioned about Burquitlam. I mean, my God, we have a chairman of the, I was the president of the GVD Housing for 5 years before I resigned to go to Ottawa. And I had a zero vacancy. I took over at 17% vacancy, took it down to zero base vacancy within a year. What is happening now? That there's people living in the housing that are being financed and being subsidized that have no business to be subsidized. Do we pay attention to it? No. And we're going to now bring the federal government, we're going to bring somebody else in, do all these wonderful things in Burquitlam. Bunch of crap. I want tonight's tape saved so I can give it to Council Reid, who sits on the Housing Committee, to play it to her 3 years from now and see what's happening in Burquitlam. But what they're painting is just painting a nice picture of what they should be doing and everything else. Federal government is not going to buy it. Unless they give tax notices to the people and tax breaks to the developers, there will be no house rentals. And that's very, very simple. And Metro Vancouver cannot subsidize anymore housing because they don't have enough money. They don't have any money and a few other things. So the fact is that, there's many, many things wrong with Metro Vancouver. But unless the board, the total board, digs their heels in, there's about 30 of them in there, digs his heels in and say enough is enough, then we may get some answers in there and get some things done. But you know something? It's pick up a check and run out the door. That's what it is. Thank you very much.
And there's
Metro Vancouver 40.
And there's 42. Any further comments on this? Seeing none. Councillor Reid.
Around the table, are you?
Not yet.
No, we haven't voted on this one.
Well, I thought we were.
Oh, no trouble. Do you have anything to say about the Metro Vancouver?
Oh, I have lots to say, but I'll be.
I fully expected you did, but
I'll be very good and very quiet.
Your restraint is astonishing.
I know.
Okay. The motion is to receive.
Yes, my medication he puts in my waterworks. Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. That's the last formal item on the agenda. There are no onward transmittal items.
Would appear that Councillor Reid has something she wishes to say.
Well, I have lots I wish to say, but I'll be quite good tonight.
Don't
I
make
want to
me-
say first, thank you. While I was away, I received an email from Chief Delmonico, and it was really good. It was about the animals, of course, that are always saved. I get copies from the firefighters of things they've done, but this was absolutely priceless. It was 2 firefighters standing there with Ziploc bags full of fish that they'd taken out of the apartment fire. And I just wanted to say thank you. That was priceless. I guess they go in and
So these weren't frozen fish. These were...
No, these are real live little fish. And they went back in to save everybody's pets. And I guess, how do you bring out a broken fish bowl? You put it in a Ziploc bag, and out they came. And I thought that was just wonderful. To engineering, I want to say thank you for the back lane, the 30 feet that I got home and got an irate call from somebody up there, and I phoned and left Mr. Susak a message and left Mr. Steblin a message, and I understand that the 30 feet in the back lane got fixed and looks wonderful and everybody's happy, so thank you to engineering. And now back to engineering with a not so good one. I've had some people from the Westwood Plateau advise me that they don't understand we're paving Parkway Boulevard, I guess, between Johnson and up to, would it be Panorama? I believe it would be Panorama. And people are just speeding down there. And last week or 2 weeks ago, apparently someone went right through where the workers were working and just missed a crew member. And I guess some of the workers jumped off the equipment and went down, and they stopped the truck. I don't know if Mr. Susak knows anything about this, but the road has always been a freeway, and now it's even worse. And the fact that the school is there across the street, and the fact that people can't even get out of the driveway to, there's one condominium project there, I think it's 1485 Parkway. They are requesting, they and some other people up further, are requesting that we have speed bumps before the school and just after Panorama to slow some of these people down before somebody gets killed there. And apparently they have asked, many citizens have asked engineering and asked the city, and there's been no action. And with this almost someone get killed, one of the workers on the road, they feel it's pretty important. And I see that on August 16th you sent a letter through regarding the Plateau Boulevard speed management, and I'm hoping that you can look at that, because Summit School is there. It's a dangerous road. And so I would hope that engineering can take this and get back to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. I just have an invitation for council and for the community that the Terry Fox Run is coming up. Coquitlam is doing a second annual. For us, this is still a sort of a new event. We have an organizing committee, and I want to make sure that you have in your calendars that Sunday, September 18th, 8:30 a.m. at Blue Mountain Park. We'll be doing the Terry Fox Run in our own community. So those of you who traditionally gone to the hometown run, we want to invite you to the Coquitlam run. Leah Pels is going to be actually doing the warm-up, I understand, and there's got to be some community folks out providing hot dogs, and it's certainly open to the community, so I want to make sure that all of council knows about that. And then I have a question for staff, Mr. Susak, about the crosstown bike route. I've spent a fair bit of time this summer cycling around the community, and folks know that I'm sort of a cycling advocate, and I've been asked by at least a dozen cyclists about how you get up and down the mountain, and I've actually had to tell them that we actually have this cross-town route. So A, they don't know about it, and B, it's not very well signed, and I just want to know what's going on there and when we can expect it to be properly signed and then promoted so that folks know how to get up and down that mountain to Mundy Park.
Thanks, Your Worship. This will probably deserve a more fulsome report out. I know that there are some, let's call them challenging missing links. We have done a fair bit of signage on this route. Where the missing signage is, I don't know off the top of my head. I will have to have a report out from staff on that, and I'm quite happy to give you either a memo or an info report. But just for any, I'm just wondering if Catherine might have any additional info or comments from the perspective of transportation planning.
So this is a work in progress a little bit on this route, and so what is happening is there has been signing requests gone through to our operations people, so there is some work in progress to sign the areas that are clearly part of the route and easily accessible. So you'll see those happening shortly. The work is scheduled. And then the missing link section, there are some sections where we need to do a little bit more work to come up with the quality of route that would work well to deal with some of the traffic volumes that people would be actually experiencing along some of the corridors. So there are, and we will report back on those items to Council in subsequent sessions.
So if I could just sort of let you know that what's happening is that those cyclists are using Mariner, which is really not safe, right, or Gatensbury, which is also really not safe. And, to me, it's just, if we have a safer route, it would be nice to sort of get on that and make sure that people know that there is a safer route that they can use and feel confident that they can get around their community by bike.
Right.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Councillor McDonnell.
Thank you. I received a few concern calls last week regarding the closure for the last weekend of Eagle Ridge Pool. It is unfortunate it was such a nice weekend, but there's, to refresh everybody's memory, there's a major motion picture being filmed there, and the city does come out of this with a $35,000 net contribution towards operating costs there. Again, it was unfortunate that it's closed because it's such hot weather, but we do have some good news regarding our pools, and I'm going to ask Ms. McKay, our General Manager of Leisure and Parks, regarding that information about the pools.
Through the chair, yes, in direct response to the opportunity to bring the feature film into Coquitlam, we did extend the operating hours for Spaney Pool, and they will continue to go until the end of September. But in addition, and just in light of the long-term weather forecast for this week, which is calling for the warmest weathers that we've experienced all summer, we are also extending the hours at Rochester Outdoor Pool, and that will continue for this week, which is a one-week extension to their normal season. Everyone is welcome to take advantage of that. Admission is $2 per person. And the schedule this week will be 3 till 7 p.m. on Thursday and Friday, and 1 to 7 p.m. for Saturday and Sunday of this week. And all of our spray parks, including Blue Mountain, Burns, Normstaff, Panorama, and Town Centre spray parks, will also continue to be open and available to help all residents beat the heat this week.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Asmundson.
Thank you. I have a couple items. One is I'd like Council to send a letter to the provincial government and the Fraser Health Authority. Presently, the Royal Columbian Hospital is going through an upgrade and an expansion, and I would like the Fraser Health Authority to actually explore and look at rebuilding Royal Columbian Hospital on the Riverview lands here in Coquitlam. It makes a lot of sense to my mind that we should be rebuilding the Royal Columbian in this area on the Riverview Hospital, because at the present now you have a population of 200,000 people in the Tri-Cities. You have a population of about 68,000 in New Westminster, which is getting more and more difficult to get to all the time, will continue to be difficult. It would also better serve Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge. So I think it's something that the provincial government and the Fraser Health, I would like them to explore and look into bringing in the Royal Columbian Hospital into Coquitlam at the Riverview Hospital site.
Is that a motion of the letter?
That's a motion that a letter be sent.
Sorry, we'll start with a motion to waive our procedures that would require 2 weeks' notice.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Councillor Reamer. All in favor of waiving notice? All opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Your motion.
That as I said, a letter be sent to the provincial government and the Fraser Health Authority to explore the feasibility and possibilities of relocating Royal Columbian Hospital onto the Riverview grounds, as it would better serve.
Moved. And there's a seconder.
Second.
Councillor Nicholson seconds that as well. Any discussion? For discussion, I'll turn on Councillor Reid's microphone, please.
Thank you. This is not new. The mayor, I know, spoke to both MLAs, in the last 3 months on this issue. I have spoken to the MLAs. We were in the process of trying to organize a meeting with the Premier's office to deal with this, and then one of our MLAs has now moved on to different fields. So that is sort of in a whole pattern. I was hoping that we could do that. When I was on the Community Fraser Health Board, Councillor Nicholson so kindly took it over for me. It had come up at the Fraser Health Board as well, and they were talking about the different care facilities that they had around the region, and they had talked about the corridor of care in Chilliwack. And I said, well, boy, have we got a place for you. We've got a great corridor of care. We've got Royal Columbian here, we've got Eagle Ridge here, and we've got this long corridor between them, and 240 acres that would make a great place of wellness. And it's fine to say just, sort of move the hospital. I don't think that's going to happen, but perhaps the expansion could be done in different types of facilities, maybe teaching facilities, and maybe, some would be, Royal Columbian is a trauma center specifically for heart and lung disease, I think. But there's, of course, other parts of our bodies that might fail too. And I think that perhaps...
For yourself?
I'm speaking for myself. But I think that there's all kinds of opportunities here. And we have 244 acres, and it's something that we need. We need as an economic booster for our community, and there's certainly the will there. And I have to speak on behalf of the Riverview Committee, because they are the people that are putting their hearts and soul into this land every day. And there are some buildings that we're hoping to protect, at least the outside of them, the shell of them, as heritage buildings. And there is a little graveyard there that I know we would like to also protect as a heritage place. There are trees, there's the Arboretum, there's Finney's Garden, there's so much on the site. But all of that could be incorporated into wellness, whether it be mental or physical wellness. And that is what we've been working on since 2005. And it just keeps progressing and progressing. And I have to say I was very pleased when the mayor came to me 3 or 4 months ago and said that he'd spoken to the 2 MLAs about this. And I said I was going to speak to them too. So I don't think it will be any surprise. I do not want it to be taken as a negative towards our neighbors at all. I just think that they are in such a constrained area there. I have to agree with you that the area is very constrained, and I think there is so many options, and the province already owns the land, et cetera, et cetera. So I'll certainly be supporting the letter.
Thank you. Councillor Lynch, is this on this item?
Yes, it is.
Go ahead.
Well, I think it's an interesting concept. I hesitate to feel really strongly in support of this, partly because each one of the hospitals, whether it's Lionsgate or Royal Columbian or Vancouver, they're all designated different areas of different traumas. And the Royal Columbian right now, it serves all of the parts that are close to border onto New Westminster. New Westminster has already lost one hospital of St. Mary's. This would be the second one. I think that there'd be some real hesitation and resistance to them losing another hospital. I think it's also important to consider that services the certain part of Burnaby that's right on the border of New Westminster. The Burnaby Hospital is actually closer to the border of Vancouver. So the health authorities, they organize the hospitals in response times. And I think, while it may sound practical to move it closer, the idea of serving Maple Ridge or Pitt Meadows, well, they've got their own hospital too. It's not a trauma center, but it's, if anything's really emergent, then you have the auto launch, and they would fly them by helicopter anyway, whether they're coming from further or not. I'm just being cautionary here that the last thing we want to do is to be looking to be seen as a community that's trying to take resources away from other communities. I think the idea of Riverview being reestablished and being some type of hospital would be perfect, but I don't think it should be the idea of actually moving the Royal Columbian and stripping another community of its hospital. So I would like to see the avenue more of having something. I mean, we've talked about Riverview being a training facility or a hospital, but it's not going to replace RCH as a trauma center. So I think it's worthy to request Fraser Health to have a look at it. The idea of moving a second hospital out of New Westminster, I doubt will be met very well by the residents or the politicians in that city.
Thank you. Councillor Reamer on this point?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to support this. I'd like to see the government look at it. I think some sort of a hospital on the Riverview grounds is an excellent idea. Last April, we did have Fraser Health here, and we also had some medical practitioners from Royal Columbian Hospital. And I asked a specific question about a hospital on the Riverview grounds, more specifically a hospital such as Royal Columbian Hospital on those grounds. And I was told that they would not consider building the same type of care level of hospital as Royal Columbian on the Riverview grounds. However, they sort of said that, well, possibly a community hospital, which is a hospital such as Eagle Ridge. And so I certainly think that this is worthy of looking at. And I have also spoken to one MLA, and he seemed very supportive of this. And so I think that we should go ahead and send this letter. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Rasmussen.
Oh, thank you very much, and I'm glad that Council will support moving this through. I think, once again, it's going to be from Fraser Health, the province to decide. I think they're looking at $1 billion that they may be spending in the upgrade in that area, and if it's the best way to spend all their money there, whether it's part of a hospital or whatever they may decide. But I think we ask them to look at it, and that's what I'm just really trying to do on this one. I'll have a vote on this, and I have another item I'd like to discuss. So, Mayor.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you bringing this item in this format, because I do think it isn't necessarily us advocating for that site and that particular hospital from New Westminster to that site, but it is asking them, as you say, to look at the option to see which one serves the region better. Because ultimately the region's taxpayers are going to foot the bill for the rebuilding of Royal Columbian. I suspect it would actually be more expensive to rebuild it on its current site because of the enormous constraints of that site. But I'm sure that costs will weigh in on that, but also the logistics. The fact that so much, $3 billion is being spent right now with new transportation improvements on our side of the Fraser River that will allow that Riverview Hospital is almost perfectly located, perhaps. I'm not a medical logistics expert, but it seems that it may well have been a game changer, the improvements to the Portman Bridge and the interchange. And we'll see whether, in fact, that is the case. They may analyze it completely, and who knows, they may decide that for the region's health needs, Riverview Hospital is the appropriate site for a trauma center. And in fact, I hope that that's their conclusion, but ultimately, Coquitlam right now is served by a hospital, but and Eagle Ridge is close to us, but we are the largest community in the province without a hospital inside its boundaries. And it's not something we're entitled to, but it is something that I think they may want to consider as they examine whether Eagle or Royal Columbian needs to be built in its current location, which is really hard to get to. So I'll support the motion. Councillor Sikora.
Thank you very much. I smell a municipal election in the air. You know, Riverview Hospital has been discussed around this table for years. Nothing new. And if we think for 1 minute that they'll take Eagle Ridge or New Westminster Hospital out of New Westminster and plonk it in Coquitlam at Riverview lands, we're dreaming. We have a hospital that's close to us that's serving us. And now to have another one in Coquitlam is just, this is really stretching it. Because frankly, it would take millions and millions and millions of dollars. There'd have to be brand new buildings built in Riverview Hospital, you name it. You know, we talked about many things. You know, even the homeless shelter should be in Riverview Hospital. And a lot of council members said, "Oh no, wrong place for it, wrong place for it. Hard to get to, no transportation." But yet we're going to plonk a hospital in there. You know. But that's all right. After November, you're not going to hear much about it till another election comes along. So that's fine. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. The motion is to send a letter. All in favor? All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Councillor Asmundson has another item.
Well, this is just, we had a fire at 99 Big Ann Street. Mayor, well, you're why I was acting mayor, so I attended down there. And I just want to put out a good thanks to our staff, starting with our fire services, did an excellent job down there. It was a difficult fire. I'd also like to thank our emergency services staff who activated Centennial. We got buses. We moved the people from down on Big Ann Street up to the Centennial Pavilion. They brought the people in. They registered them, brought in food. For those people that needed accommodation, they had started that day as soon as they found the fire, called around to find out vacant hotel rooms to put up people. They did a tremendous job. We had a meeting the next day at 1 o'clock for the residents to be updated. For those people who, as Councillor Reid pointed out, that had pets. After the fire was out, the fire department had keys and went in through all the buildings, picked up the pets. The pets people had registered through Animal Services, picked up their pets that may have been distressed. There was an agreement with a veterinarian hospital to look after and check out those pets, and the fish from 2 units were brought out. So our emergency services staff jumped to action, did an excellent job, and I think a lot of the people there were surprised at the support and the help that they received from the City of Coquitlam staff in that fire. It was an excellent job. I'd also like down to our engineering staff that was down there and was very proactive in protecting the creek down there by setting up booms to keep the foam that you use out of the water courses and protecting the fish habitat down there. They were down there throughout the fire to protect our water courses, and they were down there early, and they did a fantastic job. So I just think to all our staff that was involved in that fire, thank you, and a job well done.
Well, and that's the note I was going to have here. I was away on a family vacation and got email updates and was absolutely astounded by the number of comments we got from residents of that building about our emergency services, emergency social services here, our committee of staff here at City and the fire department for just an amazing job. The residents of the building who were displaced commented how wonderful they were treated by the city, by the city staff, by the city's teams. And the credit to you all. Please pass on to your staff, Chief Delmonico and Mr. Steblin, all of the emergency services folks here at City Hall and throughout the city for what I believe was an incredible response to a terrible disaster for a great many residents on the Big Ann fire. That's 2 large fires that we've had in the last couple of years. The fire department in both cases worked under tremendously difficult circumstances, and in both circumstances, many people displaced, but well responded to. And I, on behalf of Council, send all our thanks to everybody involved. Councillor Reid wants to...
Yeah, I just had one last thing, and it's about all the emails we've been getting in the last few days about the bears, and specifically today the mama and a couple of baby bears. We're obviously failing miserably in what we're doing up in Burke Mountain, and I think we need to take another look at it. And a couple of things I would like to know from staff, which you won't be able to answer tonight, is if the construction crews up there are not abiding by our bylaws about leaving food and stuff around, either fine them or take away their licenses. Because if they don't listen, then we've got to have some other kind of a tool, and I'm wondering which one would be best to use. I'm wondering about the bears that are shot and killed, and I had a horrible phone call while I was away, left on my machine, and when I just couldn't believe what I was hearing, but they asked me to ask the conservation officer, what happens to the bears when they're shot and killed? What happens to the bear parts? And I sure as heck hope that we're not, that I'd like to know what happens to them, that the bears get whatever happens to them as whole. I hope there isn't any kind of business like that going on, and I really want to know that. So I don't even know whose department this is. Would it be engineering? Yeah. So lucky you. I really want to know about that. And right now, today, we've had several people from up in Burke Mountain emailing us about the bears, and I really want to know what we're not doing right. So I'm prepared right now to start finding these workers if they're just sitting around throwing their lunches out and attracting the bears down, and then the bears get shot. This just isn't fair somehow. So if maybe by next week we could you could have a little look-see into what's going on up there, Mr. Susak, and report to us out at engineering next week, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I, for one, don't want to contemplate what it was you were suggesting, but I suppose we have to contemplate it. Yeah. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the motion was to no, there wasn't a motion to adjourn yet. Councillor McDonnell, second by Councillor Robinson. All in favour? Opposed? Carried. As is consistent with our practice, we will allow a question period of up to 15 minutes. People will be able to ask questions. Asking questions, these are the rules, subject to a 2-minute maximum time limit. Please abide by the 2-minute limit and ask only questions, not preamble statements. On tonight's agenda only, are there any questions from the audience on tonight's agenda? Mr. O'Neill, please step forward.
Terry O'Neill from, do you want my address?
Yes, please.
1331 Steeple Drive. I couldn't let this one pass. On item 13, Mr. Mayor, an issue was raised I think is of utmost importance. Metro Vancouver is apparently studying the issue of dematerialization. Could you provide a definition for dematerialization and also comment on whether or not Coquitlam is considering adopting dematerialization as one of its goals? Thank you.
No, we adopted demonization, but not dematerialization.
No, actually, I don't know what it means. So
does anyone have the technical term, the technical definition for dematerialization? And I'd accept any council member that has this.
Nobody knows what it means.
Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Nicholson's going to venture.
I'll offer you two possibilities. What was running through my mind as I was voting that item was the possibility of dematerializing Metro Vancouver as an organization, but I think the idea of reducing the amount of material that's used, wasted, excess packaging, all that kind of stuff, I believe that's what's intended there.
That's probably a good guess.
I couldn't get to the full-day symposium, so I didn't get to be part of deciding that it was one of the 5 major items.
Actually, technically speaking, is the absolute or reduction in the quantity of materials required to serve economic functions in society. In common terms, dematerialization means moving more with less.
Like I said.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's exactly it, Wikipedia. Are there any other questions from the audience on tonight's agenda other than questions that could be answered with Webster's?
My name is Andy Shen, 3080 Plateau Boulevard in Coquitlam. I would like to ask the mayor if he can give an update on the construction of the Evergreen line. It was on the election brochures of 2008, and right now it seems like we still don't have anything done yet.
Thank you, Andy. It has to be on tonight's agenda. Evergreen line wasn't on tonight's agenda, although there was an element of the Metro Vancouver report that touched on it. So yeah. I will tell you that the TransLink has submitted the new base plan and the supplemental plan. Supplemental plan includes a funding mechanism designed to essentially cover the commitment at the regional level for the $400 million that the region committed 6 years ago. If that supplemental plan passes, then, and that I think decision will be taking place early this month, then the province has committed that they will go ahead, because the provincial and federal dollars are already in place, that they will go ahead with the procurement process that they've been underway with for the longest time. And at this point, we should see a shovel in the ground in the spring, assuming all of those things fall in place. But it's technically not on tonight's agenda.
So it hasn't dematerialized.
It hasn't dematerialized, but it may materialize soon. But thank you very much.
Okay. One question I'd like to ask. I know that the mayors from TransLink had come up with a funding agreement. When is that funding agreement going to come to this council that we can vote on it for either yes or no? Or do we don't have a chance to have a say in it?
I'm sorry. This was actually for the audience.
What puzzles me is the fact is I'd hope that the next meeting or two we'd have probably before us the funding for the future for Evergreen Line.
I understand that. If you want to raise an issue, you're allowed to raise them during the actual meeting.
Yeah, I will. I'll raise them next time.
Okay, great. Okay. Are there any questions from the audience during the audience's question period on tonight's agenda? Any further questions? Final times. Any further questions on tonight's agenda? I'll speak to Councillor Sikora about his question, and thank you all for coming. School's back in session, so please drive safely.